Hello, Sharron.
Hello, Adam.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Long time.
No high fives at the end. So yeah, I thought I was going to trick you there.
You didn't trick me.
Oh, I thought so. Right. What's been happening?
Lots have been happening. I mean,
Whoa.
I've been out on the golf course. I don't know what you've been doing.
Oh, yeah. I've been, for those who don't know, we have our Juno Golf Invitational happening coming up actually next week. And I have been in the depths of trying to organise an event on top of everything else. And so my mate down at the golf club where we're having it has been calling me every day because he doesn't like me as much, but he will by the end of today because I've been trying to organise 80 of the best and finest on the golf course to pay Ambrose rounds. So we're pretty excited actually. This is probably one of our first one of two major events that we push out each year. It's shaping up to be 20 degrees on the day, a lot of shocking golf to be had and some very, very large handicaps. So followed by lunch, beers and wines and the rest of the festivities that go along with an amazing golf day. So I, unlike you, have not been practicing and I am starting from a pretty low base. So I will be having quite a big handicap is my expectation.
Is that we just making sure that everyone, that you're on that low level. So when you do really well, everyone's like, oh my God, you're a machine.
Oh, look, I mean, I'm not that personality. If I was going to do well, I'd tell everyone I was going to do well. So, don't expect too much from me.
It's just not true.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So, we Juno clients and Juno friends are all coming, so it'll be a great day.
Great. I feel like we're going to go from talking about golf, exciting, to the next podcast, to this episode, which is all around accountability. Ooh. The accountability gap is what I'm calling it.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure that every business out there has felt that in their business in terms of, I'm sure I said that we were going to do that and then actually nothing happened.
Unlike the meetings that everyone like, yeah, we all agree and then nothing happens.
We see that all the time, don't we, where we go, there seems to be this agreement and we all leave a meeting, or not us, but we see that happen. They leave a meeting and they think that they're all on the same page and going to execute and then there's zero follow-up, there's zero movement.
I think and it's so funny because, I mean, there's a comfort in that where people go, oh, yeah, we had that meeting. Oh, yeah, we all agree. We all agreed. It's like, well, okay, but nothing happened. But it's like, oh, yeah, but we've, we all agree. It's like, but there's another step that I think people miss out on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, agreement is one thing, and this really sort of aligns with the work that we do at Juno. That execution piece that happens next is the hard part. The agreement is almost the easy bit. And I think we see businesses that get into that space where they feel like everyone's had a great meeting and everyone feels good and we're high-fiving on the way out, and that's it.
What was the thing we caught up yesterday and we thought agreement isn't, what was that?
Alignment is not agreement.
Yeah. I heard of that a long time ago, and it's actually, it's a fun, I mean, it interweaves into this type of conversation to go, everyone can agree but not be aligned. And I go, people, there's this, and off the back of the comment that we made before, which is, we're having a meeting and everyone agrees, the alignment part actually is part of the step about moving forward to taking that stage 2 of whatever comes out of that, because agreeing to something is easy.
Yeah, and I think that this is what we're going to sort of talk a little bit about today, is that agreement is not accountability.
Correct.
And I think that businesses get confused about, I feel great that everyone's agreeing, but to what we sort of said before, that next step around how do I keep someone accountable to making sure that what we agreed we said we were going to do actually happens. And we see this all the time, that is the gap, or that is a gap in businesses where we don't transition from great agreement to great accountability.
Yeah, yeah, and it's I mean, the old the old meeting. It's so funny that the agreement in meetings, it has a course, a natural course, because then what everyone does is goes, oh well, we didn't get anything out of that meeting, I'm not going to go to it anymore, and it actually then disrupts something greater than what it was. So you kind of have to do this. It's not a nice to have. It's kind of a must have, right?
Yeah, and I think that the biggest change that a business can make in this space is when someone owns an outcome, because that creates the accountability.
Yeah.
So I think when we all leave and feeling good, and then we get back into that meeting a month later or 2 weeks later or a week later or whatever it might be, and there's been no movement, that's when we start to get that we disengage.
Yeah.
Because we were so engaged when we thought we were all in agreement. We get back however long later and nothing's moved. Then we slightly disengage. We go, well, that was sort of a waste of time, wasn't it? And we do that one more time. It doesn't take long for people to get disengaged.
So we've got, I suppose, ownership is one thing. Another thing that we see all the time is time, right? Giving, and I mean, even last week, as an example, making somebody accountable for something that everyone knows is not going to be done because they don't have the time, because they're too busy doing other things. It poses a really interesting question to go, well, what is the priority? If that person is genuinely too busy doing things that are more important for this, why are we giving them another task to add on? So there's that sort of, accountability or person and time to be able to do whatever it is. And then the other one that I always see is consequence. Like, what happens if you don't do it? Now, it's really funny with business owners, right? Because if they don't do it, well, I mean, what's the consequence for them? Because they own the business. But that's challenging, because the consequence really is that you get a reputation of saying you're going to do something and then not do it. And that is a silent consequence that business owners always forget, is that, you don't want to be the leader of a business that people can't rely on. And that is a complicated scenario. And we see that when we sometimes go into businesses ourselves that goes, oh yeah, well, she won't do it, he won't do it anyway, or, oh, it didn't happen last time. And it creates a stigma, and it's a tough thing to sort of wind out of, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would try and keep that super simple for businesses, because it doesn't have to be complicated. But out of any meeting, that ownership, like one person who is going to own that, having the deadline that goes, they're going to own it by this date. And I would say, even before we get to that consequence piece, we have, what does the follow-up look like? Because if we do the top two well and we own it, we have a deadline, but no one follows it up, that can sit in the wind forever. So right. The intent was good, and we will often find the intent's really good.
Always good, yeah.
But it's that execution piece that goes, and that's really the accountability piece, where we go, it also has to have a follow-up, or it sits there and it dies a death and it never gets looked at again. Or maybe 3 or 4 months down the track, we're back having that same conversation, because without that discipline of follow-up, it gets lost. So I think, again, holding the accountability in each of those elements is equally important, so that there is the accountability is followed through to an outcome.
So real life example, holding the accountability within a business or a team. I mean, we talked about one yesterday, which was more around the business has sort of, a couple of owners, and, created some outcomes out of some businesses to manage, some cash flow and some stuff like that. And nothing really happened. And then, 3 or 4 months down the track, it's, if we'd made those decisions back then, it would have been, talk us through an example like that.
So, I mean, with that one that we're talking about, I think the ownership was clear.
Yep.
It was agreed with the client and with us, this is what needed to happen. This is who needed to do it. I think what happened in that situation was it got too hard.
So classic.
At the time, it was like, that's the right decision to make.
Yeah.
But often the right decision requires a really challenging, difficult conversation.
Yeah.
So, and I guess, we often look at hindsight, and in hindsight for that situation, I probably should have done that conversation with the client because we could have helped them through that. And that's essentially what delayed that decision being made or seeing it through.
Yep.
Had an owner, it had a timeline, and then it got too hard. So I guess the lesson there was, what happens when it gets too hard?
Oof. What happens when it gets too hard?
Well, we have a conversation that we did this week where we're 3.5 months down the track, and there's a knock-on effect of not having made that decision. So that comes to light. And I think when that comes to light, and it's not always a good thing, then it causes that next conversation to go, okay, how are we actually going to execute on what we said we were going to do? And that actually led to, what help do you need doing that?
Yeah. Do you think sometimes it's people don't realise, and the accountability and execution sometimes is challenging and more challenging. Do you think people underestimate that and they go, oh yeah, I'll just do it, and then they get to it and it's like, I don't even know where to start something like this?
Yeah, I think it falls well outside the comfort zone, and I mean, in this situation, you're talking about some quite serious decisions that were being made in a business. And I think it's human nature to revert to what you feel comfortable doing.
For sure.
And the lane that you're in is the comfort lane, right? So you just push it out and you push it out. And, I see the difference that we make in businesses because – I mean, we are the accountability piece, right? We're there to hold the business accountable for an outcome that we all agreed on.
Yep.
So I guess in this instance, did they underestimate it? Yeah. Was it a tough conversation? Yep. Did it need to happen in order for their business to be set up the best way that it could? Yeah. So I think for us as well, it's about scripting some of those conversations. And and I often say to my clients, it's okay to do that. It's okay to actually write something down, keep it super simple, really clear, and follow a script.
Yep.
It's okay to do that.
Couldn't agree more.
Because I think what happens is we avoid it rather than going, actually, let's just plan it a little bit better. Yeah.
And not dealing with, and I mean, we see this again, not dealing with the issue, not dealing with it there and then and letting it, kicking the can down the road a little bit, it creates bigger problems in the business, and solving lots of little problems and maybe, going outside your comfort zone in order to do that is much better than having to solve really big problems, because then it's not a comfort zone thing anymore. It's a necessity, and you may or may not be equipped to deal with some of those more challenging, larger problems.
Yeah, and I think what perhaps business owners underestimate as well is that if you put a little bit more time into the planning and understanding how you're going to hold someone accountable, or whether you're holding a project accountable or a person, if you spend a little bit more time in that space at the start, then you will invariably save yourself a whole lot of time down the track.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that message is hard because it's like, I just got to go.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, hang on. Without stopping for too long and without making it too complicated. And I had a great example of this with a client yesterday. And this was about a rollout of a platform. And the client wants to go. We're ready, we're doing it. And I'm like, okay, well, how are we communicating that, and who's in charge of that, and who's accountable to that? And it was just interesting having that conversation with him. And it's like, I don't know, I'm not sure. Like that, they were the answers to about 5 questions that I had. And he's like, oh, okay. And I said, let's just come back a little bit. I mean, it was a 10-minute conversation. It wasn't like we spent 5 hours on it. In 10 minutes, we go, okay, let's just build this accountability framework so we know what we're doing at each point and who is in fact doing that and how we're going to communicate with them. It's like, yeah, no, that's a good idea.
That's again, and part of that sort of scenario for us going into businesses is helping the business owners achieve those things and being the I was having a conversation yesterday as well, and I'm like, I said to the business owners, I'm like, I feel like I'm always a bit of a Debbie Downer on this particular topic that we're talking about, but I really wanted to make sure that I was setting up the appropriate expectation of the outcome of what that project was looking for, to make sure that we were all understanding about the execution of what that looks like, what role, who is doing that, who's having those conversations, how that communication is going to be done. And in the circumstances of this is that, I ended up taking a lot of those communication channels because I was best placed to do that, to get the outcome that we had defined as what we're looking for. And so, it's a really interesting thing. And someone asked us yesterday, what do you guys do? It was a potential client. What do you guys do versus what do you expect us to do? Or was something along that line? It's a really hard question to answer, right? Because fundamentally, we do some of the doing on occasion. That's this whole part of the advice and the implementation, as opposed to just the advice or just the implementation. But we do things if it is within the best interest of the business and the outcomes that we've set, and we have the skill set and ability to do it. We will do it, right? What we won't do is everything, because that is unreasonable. And what we won't do is nothing, because we are a very skilled set of individuals that have lots of things to offer. And when we explain that, in the conversation, it's quite confusing. And we always fall into this. Well, what exactly do you do? It's like, will you help us with recruitment? I said, well, yes, we can do that if that's the best use of our time and if that's the biggest priority that your business is struggling with at the moment. It's like, okay. It's like, oh, will you help us do this? And it's like, well, depending on, and, we come back and we go, the easiest way to describe is A to F. A is where we are, F is where we're trying to get to, the A to B. The A to B always requires accountability from the business. It has to, because you're changing what you're doing because you're growing. And, whether you're growing in revenue or whether you're growing in this or growing in that, there is some type of change. What we do is we sit there and we don't just hold a business to account, but we actually make sure that change gets embedded into the business by the business doing some things and us doing some things in order to achieve the success, which is going from the A to the B. What does that encompass? And we say whatever it needs to encompass, because we at Juno have a very diverse C-suite skill set to be able to apply that and to the businesses that we work with, to get them to go from A to B, which is what we've sort of become known for, which is the driving force of moving a business from a point to a point closer to the overarching goal.
Yeah, and it was interesting, that conversation, and, coming back into that sort of accountability piece. That's what we do, because that's how you see progress.
Correct.
If you can get that piece alone right, there's a lot of things that sit underneath that. And yesterday we were talking a lot about, the clarity on what that outcome is that you're looking to get. Super important.
Yeah.
Because to hold oneself accountable to something that's irrelevant or nothing to do with the outcome that the business is trying to explore, then it's a waste of everyone's time as well. And I think that we also see that when we go, what makes a meeting great?
Yeah.
Well, a great meeting is one whereby it has an agenda. Mm-hmm. It's directly linked with an outcome that the business is looking to achieve, and that it leaves with outcome. So
and with people accountable,
ownership, deadlines, follow up. It's simple, but I would assure you, anyone out there's listening would say, I sit in so many meetings where there's none of that, or where I leave and I go, I didn't even know why I was sitting there. And we're not going to unpack that because that's a whole episode in itself, like meetings and how that works. But that whole clarity around ensuring that whatever we're holding ourselves accountable to is linked to where we're trying to get to as a business.
Yeah. And that means that first off, you've got to define where you're trying to get to as a business in order to link that. I mean, it's one big sort of, I mean, it's business, right? It's complicated, it's hard, but I go, there's a really, there's some simplistic things, and accountability is one of those things to get right. And you can get it right if you've got your business by yourself or, with a couple of business partners without the support of somebody like Juno. But you've got to focus on that. You've got to be mindful and intentional on, and the meeting's just a really easy way to describe it, because it's like, that was a great meeting. Well, it was a great meeting because we had lunch and had a couple of beers, but that's not actually really a great meeting.
I think that's a great meeting.
I
wouldn't call that a meeting though.
No, that's not a meeting. That's a catch up.
It's a catch up.
But there's an intentionality with those meetings, and they're not always, you don't always walk out of a great meeting, striving and high on life. Sometimes you have to have challenging conversations in order to get that accountability.
Yep, I would agree. We're going to introduce another segment.
Oh, another one.
I love this one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to preface it. We talk about excellence and working toward excellence. And we use this in our own internal strategy work that we do.
Oh, Sharron, I know you want to say something here.
I know.
It's your best mate.
He's not my best mate, but I do love the Jim Collins Good to Great. And we will often talk about you can be good at what you do.
Yeah.
And I often refer to this in terms of people.
Yeah.
But why would we want to settle for good? Why would we want to not find or how we operate? Why do we not want to be great and strive for excellence?
Do you think this is going to push this segment out?
We can't. We've been told it's got to be 3 minutes.
Do you think excellence is achievable?
I think that you strive for excellence, and I think the goalposts continually shift as you get better. And you should never stop and go, I'm the best I could be, because there's always something more, which means that you're always striving.
Totally agree.
Did I answer the question? I'm not sure I did answer the question.
So the answer is excellence is something visionary that you can never quite achieve because the goalposts keep changing.
Perhaps. Yes. Yeah. Well, somewhat. No, they don't change, because that would imply that
we're getting off to people are going to be mad at us, Sharron. We said we weren't going to do this.
We keep. We don't change it. They evolve. I say evolve. Now you could say that that's the same thing, but whatever. Okay, let's get back to the segment, right? So we're gonna talk about what's good to great. How can we shift something that was good to being great? So I go, good teams, they collaborate, they share ideas, and they align in meetings. That's a good team.
An excellent or a great team, they own their outcomes, they follow through, and they hold each other to account.
So when we talk about good teams talk
a lot, and great teams deliver.
That's excellence.
End of segment.
So let's come back into the accountability.
Yeah.
I think that we talk about this in the Juno sense, where we go, talking is easy. We've just said that. Holding people to account is much more challenging. And I think that the work that we do at Juno, where we really make sure that there is that accountability piece, and whether that's with people or meeting rhythms and cadences or whatever it is that we're implementing in a business, we work really hard to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Because without bridging the gap, it's hard to make the progress. So I think that without actually bringing it to light and going, there's a gap that we need to bridge, you just roll on and have great discussions and nothing really gets done, or it gets done really slowly, as opposed to being very purposeful around, I'm going to hold this business accountable, and I'm going to see things through, and I'm going to make sure that we're actually driving outcomes and holding the business accountable.
And I would say that's, I mean, I haven't stepped into a business yet where that's been great to excellent. It's always something that needs to be worked on. And there are businesses that do it well, but I go, it can always be done better. And just for the evolution of a business changes, right? And someone said this ages ago, again, it's getting a bit off topic, but they go, if you're a business of 5 and recruited 6 new people at once, how does that work? And I'm like, that's actually a really interesting concept, because the majority becomes the new people, and fundamentally they define, as the majority, they would define what the business is in a conceptual sense. And I go, you know, it's a...
Oh, I could take or leave that.
Whoa.
Yeah, we don't have time to unpack that. But,
but your business changes, right? Because it grows and you get people and, you know, new this and new that. And all of a sudden it's sort of, it changes, and you have to be on top of that change, particularly from an accountability framework. And the best case scenario is, not the best case scenario, a great example is when a business purchases another business. It is, I mean, we do a fair bit of that stuff with our professional services firms or businesses that we work with. But if you haven't got a business set up well, and I'll use accountability as this topic, if your business isn't running well and everyone's accountable and you're delivering outcomes, right? Let's say you're not doing that, and you buy another business that's not doing that, and you put those two businesses together, it's a fucking disaster,
it's
right?
chaos.
And so when you look at it, you go, that's one of the big things that we look at when we're prepping a business to purchase a business is, we call it structure, but one of those structural pillars is accountability and outcome driven, and cadence that sits alongside that. People, it is so interesting that up until that point, people don't understand how important that is, not just if you're buying a business, but just in general business day-to-day operations.
Yeah, agree. So I think for everyone out there that's thinking about that, the more you can bridge that accountability gap, the more likely you are as a business to move forward in the direction that you're wanting to.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
That's it for today.
Good work, Sharron.
That's Juno.
Oh.